Well, I just saw Dune, and boy, I don't think it's just shit. It's just bad. I genuinely think it might be my most hated film of all time. And why is that? Well, something that Dune has that very few other stories have is cool quotes. Now, you might think like, oh no, I remember this quote from this story or that story or like this thing or oh yeah, this movie's so quotable. But no, you do not know cool quotes until you've read Dune. Go to WikiQuote, start reading some of the quotes. You'll probably find a new favorite quote because Dune has great quotable moments. Now, they're really context dependent though, so you can't really like say them in a conversation and sound cool. But there are moments that are very cool, and the quote signifies the coolness of the moment. So let me tell you one of my favorite quotes. So, in Dune, Leto Atreides, Paul's father, is talking to his son Paul Atreides about why they need to go to Arrakis, and he's trying to explain to him from a father and paternal aspect, okay? So, he doesn't get into like the political, interplay that's going on or any of that intrigue. What he says is that by staying in the same place and becoming complacent, something sleeps inside of us, and that they're going to Arrakis to awaken the sleeper, and then he tells him that the sleeper must awaken. That's a cool line, and it's a cool way that Leto Atreides interprets how to explain a difficult situation and concept to his son. Later on in the book, what happens is that when Paul is finally fully integrated with the Fremen and he finally is able to ride one of the sandworms, he says, "Father, the sleeper has awakened." That which slept in him has finally come out by going to Arrakis and adopting and integrating into a whole new culture. That which would have slept has become awoken, and the thing that awakens in him is his ascent to being the Kwisatz Haderach. Now, that's pretty cool, right? That's a cool quote, and it's a cool context. In the movie, guess who says the sleeper must awaken? Well, in the movie, by Denis de Villeneuve, whatever his stupid French name is, they gave that line to the Reverend Mother of the leader of the Bene Gesserits, essentially. The Bene Gesserits are basically sexy space nuns who have Jedi mind powers. Except they can only compel people. They can't like levitate shit. Anyway, during a random scene, we hear a voiceover, and it's a very distorted voiceover, but I believe it's the Reverend Mother, and she's saying, "The sleeper has awakened, or the sleeper must awaken," and it's like all distorted and garbly. I think I could tell what it was because I know the line from the book, but I was confused because I'm curious why they would give that line to that character. The reason is because the Reverend Mother does not want Paul to be the Kwisatz Haderach because they will not be able to control him. Only Lady Jessica, Paul's mom, will have any hope of controlling him, and guess what? By the time they realize what's happening, it is far too late. That is just one erasure of context and compassion from the book in this film adaptation. I could go on probably over an hour. And now, mind you, I read Dune when I was 16. So 15 years ago. I read Dune 15 fucking years ago, and I did not read the book since. 15 years, and I still remember these aspects of the story. Dune is my favorite book. It's not the best book ever, but it's my favorite book. I like the scenes. I like the writing. I like the quotes. I like the way the characters interact. It's very interesting. It's very psychologically driven. It's very introspectively driven, and it's all inner monologue stuff. A lot of the book works off that. So in this adaptation, there's no inner monologue. The characters sometimes communicate with like sign language, and I think that is kind of a stand-in for some of the inner monologue that they've erased from the movie, but it does a very poor job. So something else that's interesting, the movie adaptation changes from the book. Now, before I get into this next one, I want to say that changing things from a source material is fine. I totally agree with making changes. For example, in Fight Club, in the book, when they are in the car and they're arguing back and forth, and then when the car crashes, the two main characters, Edward Norton and the other guy, I forget his name, when the car crashes, the parts of the car, the sides, passenger or driver, that they get out of has been swapped, which is a visual trick to tell the audience that these characters are the same character before that reveal comes. In the book, the character who's in the passenger seat, Edward Norton's character, Tyler Durden or whatever, he just gets out of the passenger seat after the car crashes. There's no ambiguity there. It's just, he just gets out of the seat that he was in. But in the movie, they change it up to visually trick you. And the author of the book, in the director's commentary, liked that so much that he says that he wished he included it in the book. That is a good change in an adaptation that strengthens the story and visually tricks the audience in a clever and unique way. That's cool. Okay, so in Dune, one of the first interesting things that happens is Paul Atreides is tested by the Reverend Mother for reasons. I actually don't quite remember the specifics, but she has him put his hand in a box called the Gom Jabbar, or the needle is the Gom Jabbar, I forget which one. And then she holds a needle up to his neck, and then she says that there's pain in the box. Now, to my understanding, there's actually nothing in the box, but she is psychologically causing him pain to see that if he can endure the pain without moving, because if he removes his hand from the box, she will stab him with the needle and kill him. Now, mind you, in the book, to my recollection, Paul repeats the mantra, fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will permit my fear to pass over me and through me, and where it is gone, I will turn my head to see where it came from or whence it gone, or something like that. That's the mantra. Fear is the little mind killer. So, Paul is going through a very stressful moment, and in the movie, they have Lady Jessica recite the fear mantra while he just kind of sits there and grimaces and has visions. And that's it. Wouldn't it make more sense for Paul, the person who is experiencing fear, to recite the fear mantra? Like, what is going on? And then something also strange is that in the movie, Paul already has been trained in using the voice. But to my recollection, in the book, Paul isn't taught to use the voice until after the Thopter scene, where Lady Jessica seduces and then uses the voice to kill the Harkonnens that are transporting them. But in the movie, he already can use the voice. And now that's important because in the book, a lot of the story is on the importance of Lady Jessica, Paul's mother, and her input in the story, because the first draft of Dune was about Lady Jessica, and Paul was younger. And Lady Jessica basically did all these things to make sure that her son could become Messiah to the Fremen and then reclaim the throne. So the ending for the first draft, Lady Jessica is told by somebody, I forget who, that she is more than just a concubine, because Lady Jessica never married Leto Atreides because he wanted to keep political options open for that purpose. So she was only a concubine. In the second draft, where Paul became the main character, but Lady Jessica still had a major role in making sure that Paul could succeed, Frank Herbert, the author, kept that ending where somebody tells Lady Jessica she's more than just a concubine, which I initially thought was kind of strange, but years later I understood the meaning. So, in the movie, what happens? Lady Jessica is instead basically stupid and helpless. So in the Thopter scene where Harkonnen troops are taking them away, she's bound and gagged. And I believe in the book, somehow her gag is like released and she says something that's like seductive, and then she uses the voice to like unbind her hands, and then like she kills them. In the movie, Paul uses his voice power to control them, and then Lady Jessica uses hers, and then they kind of team together. I don't mind the change, but there's a theme of erasing Lady Jessica's power and replacing it with Paul's, and that will come to bear fruit near the end of the movie. So, I mean, obviously, you know, fucking spoilers, but this is at the end of the movie. Mind you, nothing here is or spoiler territory, honestly. Who cares? But Lady Jessica is a Bene Gesserit. The Bene Gesserit are basically like space nuns who have Jedi mind voice powers, and they're kind of sexy. And something the Bene Gesserit have been working on is their own personal scheme of birthing this male who will have the ability to see down future paths that the females are not able to see down. The reason is that there's this kind of sexual energy that has been stored by only birthing females, that the Bene Gesserits have been like milking this bloodline for a long time, and that a male will be able to see down these paths that the female Bene Gesserit are not able to see down, and he will be able to like guide them to the golden path. Now the Bene Gesserit don't quite understand how far in the future, like what is going to threaten them, but Paul gets glimpses of it, and he actually shirks away from responsibility to lead society down the golden path to make sure that humanity can survive. And he gives that to his son, Leto Atreides II. The reason I bring this up is that the Bene Gesserit have culturally seeded many of the Imperium worlds with basically safety codes, that if any of the Bene Gesserit find themselves on a foreign planet, they can manipulate specific cultural, important cultural aspects to get in the graces of the native culture there. And the movie has a few of these things, and Paul does them naturally, but the primary integration into Fremen culture is led by Lady Jessica, exploiting these cultural, seeded things to get into Fremen society. The problem is that in the movie, Lady Jessica forgot that the Bene Gesserit did this. So in the movie, Lady Jessica keeps screaming, "Oh my God, you need to take us back to Caladan. Take us back to Caladan. We have important friends. We can pay you things. Take us back to Caladan." Why is that stupid? Oh, spoilers. You don't own Caladan anymore. You have swapped planets, and now you own Arrakis. Now, I don't actually quite remember specifically if they don't own Caladan anymore, but the fact that Lady Jessica is now obsessed with going back to Caladan is just very stupid, and it's honestly character assassination. Lady Jessica is much smarter than that. She's a much better character, and this movie treats her like a fucking idiot. And Paul is then like, "No, we're gonna go live with the Fremen," and he's like given this cool guy moment, which is very cringe. I'm not even gotten into the stuff that I really, really hate about the movie. And a lot of the stuff that I hate about the movie is just the parts of the movie that just shit on the source material, because technically speaking, the movie looks good, the movie sounds good. I like a lot of the art direction. I like a lot of the shots, the cinematography. Everything is generally fine. It's all serviceable, and it's above par. It's impressive. But the problem is that your source material is so interesting. It's so introspective. It's so psychological driven, and there's themes of sex and religion and, eco-fascism, eco-fash terrorism, essentially. But the movie ignores all of that, and it replaces it with Earth culture. So there are aspects of the movie where they replaced the cultures in the book with cultures from Earth, which makes it easier to understand and recognize. But the reason I read science fiction is because I want to see a world that I do not already know. And I do not want to see a world that I already fucking have experienced. That's fucking boring to me. I do not care. When I saw the bagpipes in this movie, I wanted to die. I do not care. You know, honestly, they might play bagpipes in the book too, but there were other aspects where they like included cultural things from Earth in the movie world that I do not believe are in the book. Now the book does also borrow from Earth culture. A lot of the the sieches, a lot of like the villages for the Fremen are named after places in like Malaysia and shit. They have like those kinds of names, and part of it is because, you know, the book is drawing this analogy to like aspects of the world that like Americans do not know about, and trying to like blur the line between like Middle East, but then also like more Eastern spiritual involvement like into the story integration, because those are aspects of it. So you've replaced an interesting fictional culture with boring Earth cultures that already exist that are not interesting, and I find that to be utterly boring. If you want to see a cool story, like a cool movie that has truly alien culture, you should watch Zardoz. That's the best science fiction movie ever made, and best science fiction story ever told, in my opinion. The movie isn't very great, but it's still the best science fiction movie ever made. I will fight anybody on that. You're fucking wrong if you think otherwise. So, one of the most important aspects of Dune is that, one, they do not have thinking technology. All of their technology only goes as far as what like a human can do and create mechanically. So they have Mentats. Mentats are what they refer to as human calculators or human computers, who basically use spice, like concentrated spice, in a way that allows them to like get super high, and they can like do super calculations. Now, we see this in the movie at one point, but we're not explained it, which is fine. We don't need to have everything explained to us. That's totally fine. But the thing that I don't like is that in Dune, they have these shields, these self-personal shields, and that contributes to the general context of the culture that Dune takes place in. Dune is a basically space feudal society, and there's reasons for that. One is that they are technologically inhibited, so they rely on psionic power given over from the spice. So they have Guild Navigators, who are essentially big worm humans who can fold space. In the movie, we're told that the Guild Navigators use spice to, quote, navigate between the stars. No, that is not how they move. They fold space. So guess what? They don't have ultra-fast propulsion. They have pretty low, weak propulsion, but they fold space to get where they need to go. In the movie, how the Guild Navigators transport people is that they have a paper towel roll in space, and you fly through it, and when you fly through it, you end up at the other end of space. Why is this stupid? One, this is stupid because the Guild Navigators have to ingest a lot of spice and a lot of mental concentration to fold space. And you're telling me that they can just casually keep these wormholes active for people to just fly through? No, that is not what would happen. Two, we never even see the Guild Navigators in the movie. The Guild Navigators are one of the most interesting parts of the Dune storied world because they're a part of an organization that shows you how corporate like greed can be shitty almost, because look at their employees. Their most worthwhile employees have given themselves over to their job, so much so that their bodies have become distorted and they have like appendages for arms. And it also shows us, the reader and audience, what is to come for Leto Atreides II when he becomes the Sand God Emperor in the book God Emperor. So we get an understanding of how the spice is able to transform people before it even happens. So we can buy into it a little bit more rather than it just being a special thing that Leto Atreides II does, okay? These things exist for a reason, and when you take them out, it needs to be for a greater reason. If you just take them out because you don't want to show strange things on screen, or here's my theory, they didn't want to spend the CGI budget to show any of the Guild Navigators. That's really what I think. Honestly, if this movie does anything, it makes David Lynch's movies seem better and better all the time, because David Lynch was brave enough to have the Guild Navigators. And guess what? They looked like how they should have looked. So, like, fuck off, Dennis V, you fucking loser. Who the fuck's named Dennis anyway? Fucking pile of shit. Oh, let's see, what else am I mad about? Oh, yeah, so anyway, back to those personal shields, right? The personal shields allow the people to fight with swords because the personal shields will reflect bullets, and most importantly, the personal shields have a very strong reaction to lasers. So, in the past, now mind you, when I say in the past, I'm talking like 1,000 fucking years ago in Dune time, they discovered that when you shoot a laser at a shield, it creates a very, very big reaction. I'm talking like 10 times, like way stronger than nuclear bomb kind of reaction. And this is just on the me zap you boom kind of thing, okay? So, in this movie, one of the weapons that is used 2 times is a laser beam. And one of the times that it's used, it's like from a spaceship is shooting down where there are armed combatants trying to shoot like a spaceship, okay? If that laser beam hits a single person's shield, it's gonna nuke half the fucking planet. Why did you even choose to adapt the book if you don't understand the source material to such an ignorant degree? You could literally have chosen any other kind of weapon, but you chose a laser. And the lasers are outlawed because nobody wants to suffer that mutually assured destruction. So everybody uses more feudal technology because their shields will prevent the use of lasers or other weaponry. Yeah, I'm at a loss for words. They do use a laser later on to try to cut through a wall, and there's 3 people beyond the wall, and if any of them acted their shield, or if they accidentally hit one of them when their shield was active, they would have blown up half the fucking planet. So, yeah. Really making me think, Dennis V. You really have a grasp on Dune. Honestly, like, just don't... Like, I don't know who was on set. And the problem, though, with the movie adaptation for Dune that Dennis has done is that all of the stupid decisions were clearly made well before the movie got to, like, any production stage. And it really shows. Because there's no way you can, like, fix a lot of the mistakes. Like, Liet Kynes shows up, and I remember Kynes being a very cool character in the book. In the movie, it's a female character, which is fine. I don't really care if you have a female character replacing a male character from the source material. I do not care at all. I honestly replace all the characters with, like, any race, any gender. I don't give a fuck. As long as you have the right name, don't really care. And in the movie, she's just like comes off as like a dumb idiot. Like the movie just uses the character and then she dies, but she doesn't feel like her character from the book. One of the characters that they did spend a lot more time with, Duncan Idaho, which is good because Duncan Idaho is one of the few characters who dies during the invasion that is quite shocking, actually. And they kind of move his death further along into the movie to make it more satisfying. But for some reason, they try to mimic like Star Wars. So they mimic Star Wars twice in this movie. One, they're trying to open the door with the laser beam, and then he like closes the door behind him and he like goes and fights him. And so it's kind of like the situation in like episode 1, the Phantom Menace. Like that was weird, very strange. But then later on, Paul is like trying to fly through a 80 kilometer per hour windstorm, 800 kilometer per hour windstorm. And he like randomly hears Stilgar's voice, even though he has not met Stilgar. And Stilgar is telling him, he's actually using one of the best quotes from the book, which is like, you can't understand a process by observing it. You need to understand a process by going through it, by actually being processed. And he says that quote, and then Paul just like turns off his like navigating computer equivalent, kind of like Star Wars real episode 1 when Luke turns off his like aiming computer or whatever. And then he just like floats around in like the sandstorm for like, I guess, a couple hours, and then turns it back on and tries to fly away. It's just, I don't remember that from the book. I don't know. A lot of the shit in the middle part of the movie totally seemed to be way off base with like what the book was doing, which is fine. It's fine to change things from the book. It's just that it should make sense. And one of the best scenes is, Paul is fighting a Fremen, and they are doing this like combat of arms, and somebody must die, and Paul kills him, but Paul has never killed anyone before, so naturally he weeps over the body, and he weeps over the body alone, and all the other Fremen are taken aback. They're so impressed by Paul's charity that he sheds water for the dead, that they invite him to the tribe, and they they're just really impressed by this. And once again, this is a cultural exploitation. And we can kind of maybe think that Lady Jessica had something to do with it, that, she knew her son would cry. But in the movie, I guess because Timothée Chalamet cannot act, he does not express anything on his face other than a scowl grimace. He just doesn't cry, and he kills the other Fremen. And they make the Fremen that he fights like stupid, which is very dumb. Like, they just make him like hey, fuck you, you need to fight, I'm gonna fuck your mom, who's your mom's champion, I'm gonna fuck her, come on. Like, it's just a very stupid character. So you want to see him die, and you don't really care about the situation, and it doesn't make sense for Paul to cry over this character, whereas in the book it was done with more of like a cultural alienness, and that Paul is like forced into this, like he has to do this to earn his right to be a part of the tribe, and then he does it, but he's sorrowful about doing it because he's just ended somebody's life that he didn't really understand like why he needed to do that. But in the movie they just make the character that he fights like a dumb asshole, which is very stupid. So he doesn't cry over that character, and the people are just like, oh, you're part of our tribe now, hey buddy, come on. And they're all patting him on the back, but like he didn't show his empathy. And this is crucially important, because what's going to happen in part 2 of Dune, and what happens in the later part of the series, is that the Fremen go on a 350 fucking trillion person genocidal rampage in the name of Paul's dead father. So to humanize the character who is going to lead that galaxy genocide, we need these moments of human compassion, because otherwise right now Paul just seems like a vengeful monster. And there's an aspect of Paul who wants vengeance, but there's also an aspect of Paul who feels like he's following a path set for him that he cannot deviate. And a lot of the book is about him having these visions of like going down the path that he needs to go down, but wanting to go down a path differently. And he's kind of caught between like, I need to do these things to get myself to this one position, but what freedom do I have? And the reason this is important is because in the second book of Dune, Paul is blinded. And that is to show that he can no longer choose his path. He can only follow the path of his visions, because he is going about things as if he is not blind, because he is merely following the visions. And at that point, he is locked in. He has no choices anymore. And that happens in the second book. Now, obviously, they're not going to adapt the second book, but these things are set up and executed in the story in a satisfying way. And in the book, they're just leaving things never to be set up. So when it comes time to even ever actualize them, we're just going to be scratching our big monkey skulls going, oh, what the fuck, huh? You're trying to do something cool here? Oh, I don't get it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even really... Thufir Hawat is a great character in the book, and he was in this movie for about 2 seconds, so that's great. They completely erased all of the Baron Harkonnen's, like, oddities. Like, he's just a fat guy who eats food and floats. And that's all he does in this movie. But in the book, the Baron is clearly somebody who is very depraved. He is sexually depraved. He is incestually depraved as well. He lusts after one of his nephews, Fade Routha, I think is his name. Sting played that character in the David Lynch adaptation, and he like lusts after his body. And part of the reason the Baron lusts is because, one, he wants that body. Like, he wants to have that body. He wants to be that person, but he also wants to have that body, if you get what I mean. So that is an aspect of the Baron that is sexually depraved that comes to fruition in the third book, but I'm not going to get into that. And they just don't have that. They just erased that oddity from the Baron. And I think, like, why, if you're going to adapt Dune, why would you erase all the oddities? Why would you erase all the weird stuff? That's what makes Dune interesting. Why would you take those out? It's not offensive to gays. He's just a bad guy who is predatory against boys. Like, it's not that it's like, oh, he's a gay character. We can only have good gay characters on screen or we'll get canceled by, you know, the LGBTQ social justice warriors. And you might, but like, fuck them. They're idiots. Like, if they're going to cancel something over that. Oh, God. I don't know. How much could I go on for? Probably a bit more, but I'm kind of like, I've ranted about this movie 3 times already that I'm kind of tired. It's just boring. Oh, another scene. So, Paul is in his room and a spy drone enters his room and it detects based on vision and movement. Okay? So, when the drone enters his room, the first thing Paul does in the movie is Paul moves, and then the drone flies up to his eyeball, and then he stands still, and then the maid character, Shadow Mapes, opens the door, and the drone goes for her, and Paul crashes it into the wall. Why is this stupid? Well, in the book, this whole segment is in Paul's mind. He understands that it sees through vision because of how it is attracted to movement. He watches it, he learns, and he reacts accordingly because in the book, Paul is a smart character. Paul is not a genius, but Paul is a rationally smart character. And then he saves the Shadow Mape's life. The problem is in the movie, when the drone enters the room, it goes straight in one direction and does not rotate until Paul moves. So like Paul can move because the drone isn't even looking at him. But like, why would you enter a room and then not rotate to look across the room? And mind you, in the movie, they don't even tell you that that's how it sees. They're just like, oh, hey, good job. You killed that drone. Good job, buddy. Oh, yeah, ha, ha, ha. Like, you just made it stupid. Like, if you're going to adapt Dune, you need to have a monologue. You need to have internal monologue because otherwise you have to rely on the visuals. But if your visuals are also stupid, then I don't know. There's nothing saving you. Like, you're just really dumb. It's really fucking dumb. And then, oh God, I think I hate everything about this movie. Like, Leto Atreides, like, they replaced the sleeper must awaken line. Like, that doesn't happen in the movie. Instead, Leto Atreides, like, talks to Paul, and he's just like, oh, like, they try to, like, it's really weird. Like, Dune has such great conversations with such emphatic characters. And this movie tries to give them that, like, Marvel, hey, we're having a good time kind of vibe with some of the characters, namely Jason Momoa. Like, I think he did a good job with Duncan Idaho because Duncan Idaho is honestly a very forgettable character. So I think he did a good job with him, honestly. But he was tonally completely different than the rest of the cast, which felt really inappropriate. And holy shit. Just so many aspects. I'm just sitting here in shock. Now, mind you, I took some headache medicine because the IMAX theater, I saw it and somebody kept farting. And then, like, the screen kept cutting to, like, super bright moments. So I had, like, a horrible fucking migraine. Oh, my God. Oh, okay. The last scene I'll tell you about why it sucks is that, oh, no, there's a few more, actually. Sorry, I just remember. So, Paul and Lady Jessica, who is his mom, are getting changed into their still suits, which are suits that reclaim their body's moisture so they can drink. And I don't remember this happening in the book this way, but this is how it happens in the movie. Paul takes his shirt off, and then he looks back at his mom. And then we cut over to Lady Jessica, and she, like, you know, looks back at Paul, like, and then we go back to Paul, and he, like, looks back at her, and he's about to take his, and then he takes his pants off, and then the next, it cuts, and then they're in their still suits. So why is this editing strange? So the way this is edited is if it's in the style of having two kind of like spy characters who are getting into their like outfits, but they're both like kind of peeking at each other like, oh, you know, like, oh, you're undressing, like, oh, how do you look? And then the other one's like, oh, they're kind of nervous and they're like, oh, how are you undressing? Like, I'm gonna check you out while you're undressing. And when you shoot it like that, that's the scene that you're shooting. But the problem is that Paul and Lady Jessica are mother and son. So like why did you shoot an incest baiting scene? Like, Dune might be a kind of pervy novel, but Dune is not horny and not incestual. At least, I mean, the Baron is incestual, but the Atreides are like basically good upstanding Americans. So like, why is there incest baiting in this movie? Why did anyone even read the book? And I know a lot of my complaints about the movie are just like poor adaptation choices, but the problem is that when you are choosing so poorly to adapt a material that the movie, like when I was watching this, I was constantly thinking, if I didn't know the source material, would I understand what's going on? And there are some scenes where it's like, why the fuck is this happening? Like, there's a scene where a bunch of people who are running out into fight with swords are getting bombed with missiles. And it calls into question, why are they fighting with swords if they have missile technology? It really, like, makes you think. Like, if they have ships that can fly and shoot missiles, why would you have people with swords on the ground? And then you have lasers, too. You have lasers from spaceships. Like, why? Like, what? Why is that happening? Oh, God, why? Just... Oh, another dumb thing. So in the book, there's this huge political thing that happens where the Emperor's troops are wearing Harkonnen outfits and they're helping the Harkonnen kill the Atreides. In the movie, they just have the Sardaukar show up in their Sardaukar armor, and then somebody shouts, "Oh my God, it's the Sardaukar, watch out!" And then they are killing the Atreides. Why is this dumb? Well, Dune is a very political heavy novel with a lot of intrigue, and if you had the Emperor helping in a war between great houses, that would spark a political crisis where the other great houses would probably like push back against this behavior, because nobody wants to see the Emperor taking sides in great house conflicts. The Emperor is the one who is essentially supposed to kind of arbitrate between the houses, but if war arises, not intervene. The Emperor is kind of like just the dude who sets the chessboard, but then the pieces fight amongst themselves, and he's not supposed to get involved. But in this movie, they made it so dumb that like the Sardaukar just show up in the armor that they were wearing, so everybody would know that they're Sardaukar. Even the Atreides troops knew that they were Sardaukar right when they landed. Actually, they didn't know that because the Harkonnens are fighting the Atreides, and then the Sardaukar drop down behind them, and the Atreides soldiers don't even turn around. The Harkonnens shout, "Oh, the Sardaukar are here!" And then the Atreides turn around, and then they got to fight on both sides, and then they just die. And it's like, why would you say that? I mean, I understand why they say that. It's for the big dumb audience to understand what's going on, but like, the one thing that the movie built up was that political intrigue of the Baron and the Emperor, which we don't even meet the Emperor, right? We only see the Emperor's herald, which is just, why didn't they cast the Emperor? Why is he not in the movie? Why didn't they have the intro from Lady Irulan. Her intro is great for Dune. Dune has an amazing intro. I mean, obviously it would be really similar to like David Lynch's Dune, which is, I think this movie was insecure about. This movie was desperately trying to not seem like David Lynch's Dune, where they just didn't include aspects of Dune because David Lynch included them. But it's like, dude, it's in the book. You need to include it. Like, well, I don't know why you would erase it, or you would give that line to another character that just makes it erases the context. Like, what the fuck? Oh, did I mention that Paul dreams of a Fremen girl named Chani, and he knows her name. He hears her name in his dreams. He knows that it's Chani. I'm pretty sure. I mean, my memory is 15 years out, but I'm pretty sure. And then when he meets her, he already knows her name. So when he meets her, it's this kind of like weird, like destiny kind of feeling thing, right? And then in the movie, Stilgar says Chani's name in front of Paul casually, so that when Paul says Chani's name, there's no interesting significance to it. Like, when Paul meets Chani in the book, it feels like this destined meeting. It feels interesting because it was set up to be something that we've been waiting for. But in the movie, it's just like Timothée Chalamet's like, hey, Chani-chan, and then she's like, yeah, Paul, you beta cuck loser incel. She just like treats him like an asshole, and then he's like, oh, never mind. And then he like goes to the battle, and it's like, oh, I guess they're gonna like save that for part 2, but like you still could have included some like. I think this is my most hated movie. Like, every decision is bewilderingly stupid. And it just, like, it makes the story that you're watching, like, not fun or entertaining. Because you have erased all the intelligence from the story. And then, like, you've replaced it with nothing. And the interesting cultures that existed in Dune have been replaced with, like, boring Earth cultures that I already know and understand. Like, I want to see new cultures. Like, they talk about, like, this desert power, which I don't remember that from the book. Honestly, it was pretty cringe. They're like, oh yeah, we can use the Fremen as desert power there. Like, that's not what Paul was thinking. When Paul meets the Fremen and he joins them, that's not what he was thinking about, does it? Like that? Oh god, just kill me. And now, mind you, my memory is like 15 years out, so I could be wrong about some things, but generally, I would say I'm pretty accurate. Every decision made in terms of this adaptation, I think, was dog shit. And it's only saved by sound design, by editing, by cinematography. Not really the performances. The performances are pretty meh. Timothée Chalamet is garbage. But I don't think he was actually garbage. I think he was just given bad direction. And we never see the Guild Navigators, which I think is some of the most offensive shit ever. If you're going to adapt Dune, you need to adapt the weird parts of Dune and not erase them. So I honestly, I think this is a 0 out of 10 for me. I would not tell anyone to watch this movie. I find it offensively stupid, and I genuinely hate this film. I think it's terrible. I really do. And if you like it, I'm sorry, but just go to the trash can, eat shit, eat garbage. It's better. It really is. And also, that's what your taste must be, because man, fuck this movie. Oops, I hit the mic. Well, blow me.